In Genesis 18, God reaffirms his covenant with Abraham, promising that Sarah will bear a son named Isaac. This divine encounter occurs near the great trees of Mamre, where three angelic visitors deliver the message. Abraham, now 100 years old, is reminded of God's faithfulness despite human impossibility. The scene underscores the theme of divine timing and the supernatural fulfillment of promises. The visitors' presence signifies God's personal involvement in his covenant plan. Sarah, listening from the tent entrance, laughs silently at the prophecy of bearing a child in her old age, Genesis 18 verse 12. At 90 years old, her reaction reflects both cultural shame over barrenness and human skepticism. The text highlights her inner monologue, "After I am worn out, shall I have pleasure?" This moment captures the tension between divine promise and human doubt, setting the stage for God's response. The Lord directly addresses Sarah's doubt with a rhetorical question, "Is anything too hard for the Lord?" Genesis 18:14. This divine rebuke underscores God's omnipotence and the certainty of his word. The narrative contrasts human limitations with heavenly power, foreshadowing Isaac's miraculous birth. The scene also establishes God's intimate knowledge of human hearts. He heard Sarah's silent laughter. Genesis 21:1-2 records the precise fulfillment. The Lord visited Sarah as he had said. Against biological odds, Sarah conceives and bears Abraham a son in their old age. This miracle echoes earlier covenantal promises, Genesis 15:4, and demonstrates God's faithfulness. The timing, exactly as God predicted, reinforces the theme that divine plans transcend natural laws. As Sarah's pregnancy progresses, tensions escalate with Hagar and Ishmael. Genesis 21:9-10. Ishmael, now a teenager, mocks Isaac, triggering Sarah's demand for their expulsion. This conflict stems from Abraham's earlier attempt to fulfill God's promise through human means, Genesis 16. The scene reveals the painful consequences of impatience with God's timing. Isaac's birth, Genesis 21:3-5, marks the physical fulfillment of God's covenant. Abraham circumcises him on the 8th day, obeying the divine command, Genesis 17:12. The name Isaac, meaning he laughs, memorializes both Sarah's initial disbelief and her eventual joy. This moment signifies the legitimate heir through whom God's redemptive plan will unfold. Sarah's laughter now transforms into joyous proclamation. God has made laughter for me, Genesis 21:6-7. This poetic declaration contrasts her earlier skepticism, showcasing God's power to turn shame into celebration. The birth also silences cultural stigma around barrenness, as Isaac becomes living proof of God's faithfulness to his promises. Abraham hosts a grand feast when Isaac is weaned, around age 2 to 3, Genesis 21:8. This public celebration affirms Isaac's status as the covenant heir. Ancient Near Eastern customs viewed weaning as a child's survival milestone. The feast also heightens the contrast with Ishmael, who would have been about 16 years old at this time. At Sarah's insistence, Abraham reluctantly banishes Hagar and Ishmael. Genesis 21:10-14. God confirms this painful decision, separating the line of promise, Isaac, from human effort, Ishmael. Abraham provides minimal provisions, bread and a water skin, highlighting their vulnerable state. The scene foreshadows future conflicts between their descendants. When Hagar's supplies run out, God intervenes, Genesis 21:15-20. An angel directs her to a hidden well, saving Ishmael. This mirrors God's earlier encounter with Hagar, Genesis 16, showing his care beyond the covenant line. Though Ishmael won't inherit Abraham's spiritual promise, God still blesses him materially, making him a great nation.